good morning, everybody. My name is Phil Ike, and joining me today is City Manager for the City of Cadillac, Marcus Peck. Good morning, Marcus.
Good morning, Phil. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you. I personally have, and to my shame, have never been to Cadillac.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. So for the other folks who might be listening to this or watching this, maybe give us a little introduction about to the community of Cadillac, just so that we get to know you a little bit better before we dive in.
Happy to. So, Cadillac, Michigan, we are Northwest Michigan. We are about an hour and 20 minutes northwest of Grand Rapids and about 45 minutes southeast of Traverse City. Also, about 45 minutes due east of Manistee. So, if that helps orient people into our location, I hope that gives a fair idea of our geography. We're about 10,500 people that call Cadillac home every night. We have a significant industrial core to our community that frankly makes our population swell about 80 to 90%, depending on the day of the week. And so we're the county seat. We have an incredible opportunity for people that love to come and enjoy the outdoors. We have parks, we have lakes, we have trails, we have shopping and restaurants and dining and a movie theater. And so we are sort of your example of a big small town. We've got it all. Depending upon where you're at, you can enjoy looking at Victorian homes in our historic district, walking down a traditional Main Street, or you could go for a several-mile walk around our lake or take a bike around the lake. I mean, there's really opportunities for all.
Very cool.
Yeah.
With so much happening for Cadillac, what was it about the community that really interested you guys in becoming a redevelopment ready community?
That is a great question, and I got to tell you, there's just not a simple answer to it. We're a small shop. We're a small operation. As you mentioned, I'm the city manager. I have several operating departments, including community development. The community development director also serves as our downtown development authority director as well. And we, as a team, work really closely with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, trying to find every possible opportunity out there, whether it's to help downtown commercial type businesses or those that are even outside of that downtown corridor, or our industry in our town, figure out how to either stay where they're at here, grow where they're at here, or attract new economic development to the community. And the whole ecosystem of economic development is enormous, right? It includes many facets of things: housing and schools and places to recreate and go to. And when the state of Michigan pushed out their Redevelopment Ready Communities certification program, it was like, wow, this is an enormous undertaking. There was certainly a sort of stick and carrot type situation where we knew that, one, we need to do this to begin with, but two, we also knew that if we did this, we would then become eligible for all sorts of other layers of assistance and incentives and help from the state of Michigan. And we jumped into it. And it was a very grueling process that took us several years, but worth every minute. We have, again, a very limited amount of staff, which is fine. It's how we're designed. We're very lean, and it works for us. And we absolutely rely just beyond how I can characterize the partnerships and collaboration between not just the local agencies and groups that are here to progress Cadillac forward, but the state of Michigan. Most of the economic development initiatives that I've been involved in nearly the 15 years I've served this community, in one way, shape, or form, the state of Michigan has been a partner. And the Redevelopment Ready Communities, or RRC certification program, since we became an anointed community with that, has only further bolstered that partnership, has only further led to different kind of unique opportunities, whether it's getting an architect to come in and have a cup of coffee and sort of shoot the breeze with prospective developers and property owners, or even getting some micro grants to help further conversation along. And so I can't I can't stress it enough, the importance of the partnership and collaboration.
Mm. Yeah, you're saying things that really support a consistent theme between all of the conversations that we're having around RRC. In that, it's hard. It's a process, it's a length of time, but that being said, it's absolutely worth it, in that you, specifically if you're a local government with capacity limitations or resource limitations or experience limitations, you now have access to technical assistance, to funding, to people who have been doing this kind of work in many, many communities for a long time. And so you get that expertise, and then you come out this other side a transformed community, and that has so many payoffs beyond just kind of the hard things that you've been given. And that's an exciting thing, especially for like our little big cities in
Right,
Michigan,
right. And that's also it's exciting. It makes things interesting to manage and to deal with. I take surveys all the time, whether it's for the University of Michigan or whomever, and they always ask you define your city, right? And clearly, Cadillac is defined as rural, where we're at. But in reality, we're urban. We're not rural. I mean, we are an urban pin drop in a sense in the middle of a very rural area. The density levels of our city, because one of the lakes is right in the middle of the heart of town,
Mm.
creates this urban density, at least within our downtown corridor, that you don't see in rural or suburban type communities. However, as you sort of branch away and go a half a mile one way or a mile another way, then you will start to see the different lot sizes and more of a suburban feel. If you're on one side of the lake, it's like a standard 50 by 100 type city lot that you'd find in many urban areas. You go on the other side of the lake, it's definitely more suburban or rural, where you have quarter acre, half acre lots, or sometimes even bigger, depending upon where you might be. So it's really an interesting dynamic. And as we look at RRC or other programs and initiatives out there, we're really trying to do everything we can to fit all of the needs that a city like Cadillac has, which is we're not just looking to try to do one type of project or one type of program. We're looking for housing products of all types, shapes, forms. The same with economic development types of initiatives. And Phil, if you don't mind me jumping back a little bit, Cadillac has always been what I would say very aggressive in trying to shape and form its own destiny. That's not possible if not for a real strong collaborative spirit of community between the city council and the other boards that we have, our downtown development authority, our brownfield authority, our planning commission, just to name a few, and of course city staff. It is so important that we're able to communicate with each other, and then communicate with other bodies and agencies and boards that are within the community. Cadillac is unique. There are a couple of private nonprofits, the Cadillac Industrial Fund that was formed in the 1950s, and the spinoff of the Cadillac Downtown Fund, where there are networked, community stakeholders that are part of these groups that help work with prospective developers and current property owners and business owners, with the city, with the state behind the scenes, just to help get information out and to help make deals work. And when people have trouble getting things getting things done, sometimes those questions come to me through that group or through liaisons on that group. The community Cadillac Area Community Foundation is a real strong agency in this community that has an incredible grant from, I believe, the Kellogg Foundation that helps them fund all sorts of different programs. And we also have really strong service clubs, Kiwanis, Rotary. Rotary has been directly involved in granting hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to this community in all sorts of public projects. If you were to just go on Google and look at the area we call Cadillac Commons, there's the Rotary Performing Arts Pavilion on the lake that just a few years ago, there was over $600,000 of renovations and rehabilitation done to it that they spearheaded. There's just all sorts of different really cool examples, all for the purpose of trying to bring community together and people together. We really embraced the placemaking concepts that the state laid out a number of years ago. And the Redevelopment Ready Communities and Main Street program, those all are components, right? They're all gears in that wheel, that cog. It all falls into place, and we're trying to just do our best to use what is being provided as a way of moving things forward. And we're going through what I would call a sensitive time right now, looking at our zoning code that needs to be refreshed. Following that, we'll be looking at our master plan that needs to be refreshed. And we're leaning on some of the principles within the RRC program to help guide us, right? To help sort of modernize or contemporize the city and how we do business. We kind of fly by the seat of our pants to a degree to make sure that when projects come in and people come in, we don't get them tangled up in a web of bureaucracy. We like to try to move as fast as we can with things, and we see that, especially through the RRC program, that is it's a way to really streamline things, keep things
I,
moving at a fast track.
I love what you said about RRC being a guide through potentially sensitive or complex situations in regards to like zoning or ordinances, and I love that, because like what community leader doesn't think, man, I wish I just had some help in this, or I
Right.
wish I had somebody to talk to about this. I wish I could walk into City Hall tomorrow and have somebody say, you know what, Marcus, you should think about doing this, 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 and this, because we've seen it work in 15 other communities just like you, and it worked out just great. Like that, not only is effective community leadership, but on a personal level, it makes you feel supported. It makes you feel like you've got help from an expert or from
Mhm.
experts that know what they're doing, and that just it helps everybody. It shortens that learning curve. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You get what you want faster. I love all that, and I also love what you said about how we sometimes define rural and urban, because a lot of our smaller communities in Michigan fall under that definition of rural, and immediately the impression you get in your brain is you see a house, and then you drive a mile down the road surrounded by farm field, and then you see another house, and then you
Right.
see another farm. And that's not really the case. That there's different definitions of what a metropolitan core community can be, depending on where it is in the context and the environment and the location it is in the state. And so here at Cadillac, 10,500 people, it sounds like the kind of that metropolitan core for that region or that area, and that brings with it,
Mhm.
quote, urban issues like a really huge issue that so many of our communities are dealing with: housing. If you're one house surrounded by miles of farmland, surrounded by another house, that community may not necessarily be thinking about housing in the same way as a dense downtown urban core that's saying, how can we get more people who want to live here places where they can live? I would love for you to talk to me a little bit about some developments or redevelopments that you've been
Sure.
doing to address this issue of housing.
Housing is, and the housing issue is not just a trendy thing to talk about. Recognizing that it's something that we hear about all across the country, all across the state. Oh my God, it's an issue. It genuinely is.
Mhm.
And I can say that there was a study that was done, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago or so, maybe even longer, and it talked about how if 200 new units of houses were built or dwellings were built every year, that that would have to happen. I think it was like 200 units a year for like the next 10 years or something like that, or whatever. Maybe it was 5 years just to meet the demand. And this was 6, 7 years ago because this was
Wow.
pre COVID. And I can tell you in my time, we have not had 200 new units built over that period of time. We have been very, very lucky to be able to attract some cool developments in town. We have, I believe, the first mixed use project called Cadillac Lofts that was built just before COVID kind of really got hot and heavy. And it's a two-phase project. First building was built 4 stories, first story is commercial. It's 2, 3, and 4 floors are all residential. It's about 48 units. The next building, which we are hoping will break ground next year. Again, there's a tremendous amount of collaboration, even with the federal level, trying to make this thing work. Will be somewhere between 48 and 52 units. I think they're looking at a way to squeeze another handful of units into it. Another 4 story building. We've got a few other developments that are in the works. They haven't quite broke ground yet. One is the redevelopment of a building that the Cadillac area public school system used to have a school in called the Cooley School, and that's going to be a new housing development on that site and using the old school property in part as the development. I'm working on another 2 apartment building project just a block or so away from City Hall. It's going to be called the Lake Street Flats. But the story that needs to be woven or needs to be told about all this is how creative you have to be. The cost of land to a degree, but mostly the cost of materials and labor and all the services that go along with creating a project, architectural, engineering, and whatnot. Those cost the same whether you're building in Cadillac, Michigan, or downtown Detroit, or Grand Rapids, or Traverse City. What What's different, though, of course, is the individual markets and whether or not the market can support what those costs are and still provide any kind of reasonable return on investment for the developer.
I
And
love that you said that. I hate interrupting you. I'm just getting
no,
super fired
please,
up. I love that you said that because it really adds another layer to this issue of housing and the challenge that it presents specifically to smaller communities, because it's one thing to say housing is an issue, but this layer is so important because you can build a new development out in the middle of a farm field and say, hey, this is $1,500 a month to rent an apartment, and people in that market are going to go, oh my goodness, there is no way anyone around here could ever afford anything like that. You drop that into a high density, high population, super high demand area with that kind of market, and people are going, "Oh my goodness, this is so cheap." There's a wait list,
right?
30 people long, saying, "Hey, call me in 4 years when you have an opening. I would love to move in." But it costs that the same. And so I love your suggestion in this idea of you have to be creative because the costs are the same. The
Well, wait
market,
till you hear where I go next
yes, please,
with this line of thought here.
please.
So I'm going to use Cadillac Lofts right now as part of the first example here. So we're fully invested now in the RRC program. We're getting ourselves certified and all this, all at the same time that we're trying to get these deals done, right? And so we get through our awesome relationship with the MEDC, we get connected with a nonprofit called Michigan Community Capital. Michigan Community Capital then negotiates a deal with another developer that happened to have an option on the property that Michigan Community Capital wanted to build this mixed use development on. And so we help facilitate those conversations. Ultimately, the other developer walks away from the project. Michigan Community Capital takes it, partners with a local architectural firm and design firm, and away we go. When looking at the numbers and looking at return on investment, even with all sorts of assistance, and this is where I have to kind of do a hard break and say, in a lot of places in the state, especially around the more urban centers and metro areas around the bigger cities, you're able to really take advantage of the Michigan low income tax housing credit program, or LIHTC, where you can get essentially a payment in lieu of taxes deal through your local municipality. You then earn all these tax credits as long as you guarantee that your tenants are going to only be within a certain percentage of income based on the average median income of what the county is. It's a fantastic program. Problem, though, that we found is that where Cadillac's located in Wexford County, the average median income up here is between 35 and 40,000, let's just say, for a single, somewhere in that range. And when you can only earn 60% of that, 70% of that, maybe 80% for a unit or two, it's a non-starter, because a lot of the folks that need this housing, we're talking about police officers and firefighters and hospital technicians and first year teachers and folks that are working on the factory floor. As I mentioned before, we have a lot of industry in town. Even using the industry workers, even if their base wages are 35,000, they earn bonuses, they earn merit adjustments, they earn all these other things. And if you can only earn 60% of that, or make 60% of that to qualify to get in, it just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So what the hell do we do, right? So I can tell you, I think it's because of our engagement with the state of Michigan Economic Development Corporation, and the good work that we had already under our belts, and the fact that we were engaged in RRC and communicating with them, and they see and understand the fact that the Cadillac community itself is all on the same page, relatively speaking, and trying to move the city forward. We created Frankenstein's monster in a sense. We were able to get a CDBG funding to help get the site cleaned up and environmentally remediated. We put down a commercial redevelopment incentive on the ground floor. We then put in place a neighborhood enterprise zone abatement on floors 2, 3, and 4 up in the air. We also put a brownfield plan around that whole sucker. The state of Michigan threw in over $1 million grant, and they threw out several $1 million of like incredibly low interest loans to Michigan Community Capital to help them not just get Cadillac moving, but then to also kind of model what we did in Cadillac in some other northern Michigan communities that have that weird situation going on where the AMI is what it is, and it just doesn't work with trying to get the LIHTC type projects in the town. And so, I mean, we did it. Now, I'll tell you that I think the return on investment on just building one was like 1.9%. I mean, it's nothing, right? So, if not for the fact that this being a nonprofit, it still would have been a dead deal. But they did this, and Cadillac and the community supported this in a way to try to create a transformational project in a spot in town that would have a rebounding effect, a reverberation across the city, and it did. I mean, it. We have seen new businesses come into town. We've seen some businesses leave, but we've seen new businesses come into town. We've seen a reinvestment. People are improving their facades. They're changing things up. People are excited to be here, and it's just a cool thing to be a part of. People say, Marcus, why in the heck are you in local government? Why don't you work for some big company or whatever, right? Sell widgets.
Mhm.
And what I always try to tell them, and sometimes it comes out a little clunky, is that at the local government level, especially in a community like Cadillac, you can see the results of the collaborations and partnerships pretty darn quick. You might work on something for years behind the scenes, but when it starts to happen, it's not like you just put up another apartment building in Detroit or something, and you may not really see a difference
Mhm.
the next day. You do something like that in Cadillac, Michigan, it's the talk of the town, and there are immediate positive impacts. There's
Mhm.
always people are right. Yeah, traffic's gone up. Yeah, there's more activity. I mean, it's not all just
Sunshine and rainbows.
yeah, right. So thank you. That was exactly what I was thinking about. But if you're not growing, you're dying. It's just that simple. There is no staying the same. Just the way that fiscal policy works in this state as well. I mean, if you are not growing, if you're not doing something to grow, you, you're just dying. So we're trying our best.
What you said about what can happen when you have local organizations and you have policy and you've got zoning and you've got agencies within your local community all moving in that similar direction. I i i love that because it really highlights what like RRC and Michigan Main Street really do, in that they don't come in, wave a magic wand, and say, "Here you go, Cadillac. Here's this community that you've always wanted," and like that. But
Right,
what it is it says we can help you with your downtown and what it means to be a thriving downtown, and we can build that infrastructure economically and through marketing and things like that that can say, hey, this is moving in a really strong forward direction. RRC, being a redevelopment ready community, that toolkit comes in and says, hey, you know what, zoning ordinances, redevelopment, that's a really critical piece of that too, and we can help you with that so that that's moving in the same direction. And then once you get that local sense of ownership and other people see that momentum, that's when that the floodgates open and it
Mhm.
leads to really, really transformative things. I just had an interview with Sturgis, and that's exactly what they said too. Is like our what we gained from RRC almost feels like they opened the door. The door was closed before. It was always going to be hard, difficult, confusing, overwhelming. It would have taken 45 years to accomplish what we wanted to
Right,
accomplish. But
right.
putting in those couple years of hard work open that door. And he mentioned a project that he said it's going to be $3 million coming into our community, and it's going to be, like you said, that catalytic project that
Yeah,
generation
transformative. Yeah,
yes, generations from now, they can say that was the project that gave us this community that we have right now. It was this signal flare going up in the air that says, hey guys, you want to be a part of what's happening here. And then that's attractive to more developers because it signals a strong economy and a strong market. It signals a small business owners to say, hey, this is a chance to make my dreams happen and contribute to this community. Other community partners saying, hey, we've got to get behind this. We see momentum and the potential of our effort, and that's so encouraging to hear from a community, because who doesn't want, like you said, I could be working for a company selling widgets, but you don't get that feeling of changing people's lives. Like you said, bringing in 20 units of housing into a huge metropolitan area, people are not even going to think twice about it. They're going to say, why
right.
isn't it 200 or why isn't it 250? But you bring in 20 units, and then you bring in another 20 units, and
Yep.
now people's lives are changed. People are generating wealth. The community itself is generating wealth, whereas before it was likely losing wealth. And so it's just such an
Yeah.
incredible opportunity for so many communities.
And Phil, I think there's another real important ingredient to this recipe. And I'll say it this way too. I mean, you might have all the ingredients to the recipe, and you might throw it in the pot, and it's going to come out amazing, right? And then you might try to do the same thing a day later, a year later, a month later, and it's going to come out flat or it's going to blow up in your face or whatever the case is. Look, ultimately, whether you're a Main Street community, whether you're an RRC community, and Cadillac has just recently received essentially a preliminary like Main Street status. We're going down that rabbit hole to try to figure out, hey, how could this help us? Maybe we could even progress ourselves further. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that no matter how many certifications you have or accolades or whatnot, ultimately you have to be able to work with your community, with your elected and appointed boards, and vice versa. And we might suggest, hey, we think you should go left over here, and your policymakers might say, nope, no, well, thank you, but we think we should go right. And it doesn't mean that we're right and they're wrong, or they're wrong and we're right. It's just whether you're RRC or Main Street or not, sometimes you just have to do what the policy or the community at that point dictates, and then continue to build upon whatever those new foundations are, which is one thing I think it's important to mention as well. But also one of the most important ingredients too to all of this whole economic development thing, as we try to talk about housing and business and industry and how it all fits together in relationships, is that my very humbled opinion is that the community, the city, needs to also focus on itself. And what I mean by that is that if a city doesn't have the open public places that people want to go and congregate at least within proximity to what I call my economic development centers or areas, that's a huge ingredient that's missing from the recipe. And I can tell you that when I came to town, again, almost 15 years ago, we have a beautiful lakefront park, and the lakefront park is only 2-3 blocks from sort of the main downtown strip, and on the other side of the lake, it's a block off of the corridor that is a commercial corridor on a more rustic side, not more of an urban area. But the issue is that unless you were going to bike it, run it, hike it, in a sense, walk it, there was nothing really else for people to do in town. There was plenty of parking. And this is the correlation to a partnership with the state. We looked at this incredibly large, frankly obsolete, dare I even call it blighted to a minimal degree, parking area. Place planning just started to become a trend. The Michigan Municipal League, in partnership with MSU Extension and the University of Michigan and a half a dozen other groups, just came out with this program. We applied for it. We received a technical services grant. They came in and over the course of several months helped us bring the public and the boards and the staff together to develop a place plan. And then once that thing was done, through the already strong partnership that we had with the MEDC, we were able to get some seed money to move forward on creating a plaza. And this plaza is what was in, frankly, a defunct parking lot. It now has a splash pad with canisters that have LED lighting in it. And every night there's a night show that goes on intermittently for a few hours. It's got an area where there's the ability for a pop-up special events and other activities to occur. There's a stereo system that can rock out if people wanted to there. There's an enormous fireplace right in the middle. There's still public parking on either side. But what this created was a destination place for people to go to right in the heart of the downtown area that you could just go and hang out in while you're down there. And you may not have any idea what you're going to do, but you walk a few feet this way, you can grab an ice cream cone. You walk a few feet another way, you go into a boutique shop, go to the movies, grab dinner. I mean, there's all these different things that it just creates this thing that's sort of in the background that either could be the destination place that you're heading to, or you may not even know about it. Now you've come to Cadillac and you've seen this and you start talking about it and you gossip about it, and it kind of branches out from there. And that was that was the first public sort of place planning place that we put together. Since then, in this whole commons area, we now have a 5,000 square foot open air market. We're in the process. We just received nearly $1 million grant from Community Development Block Grant Program to put in operational drop down sides, put in some electric vehicle charging, a sound system, and some other things. It's already heated. We're going to have bathrooms installed. I mean, so we're doing some really cool things. There's a trailhead that's adjacent to that, and that trailhead is connected to the White Pine Trail. So there is now a trailhead right there that is in town, and you can lock up your bike. There's a little bike fix repair station. There's a gazebo. There's places to sit. There's wayfinding signage. You take the trailhead like 2 blocks to our south. You're actually then on the Frederick Meyer White Pine Trail, which is a 90-mile trail that takes you just outside of Grand Rapids. So I mean, the opportunities are just really, really cool. And so I realize that I'm rambling a little bit here, and I apologize. But what's important to understand, the takeaway is you need to also invest. Cities need to also invest in themselves in order to attract and retain and grow economically. Whether we're talking about new industry wanting to come to town or pre-existing industry wanting to expand, or a new cafe or a new clothing store or whatever the case is, we have to keep it exciting here. We have to make Cadillac a place that people want to be. And so it's just another piece of the puzzle.
I love that you brought up this piece of the puzzle. And as you were talking, I was at a meeting, a community meeting, and I was talking about this public art initiative. And it was in a community that's relatively new to public art and placemaking. They've kind of dipped their toe in every once in a while, but they're relatively new to what it is and what the potential it can mean for the community. And I was talking about this initiative, and this man raised his hand, and he was like, he's a business owner in town. He's like, how are these murals going to make us more money? And he caught me off guard a little bit. And I said to him, I was like, hey, Tom, like you just opened a brand new restaurant on the river, right? And he's like, yeah. And he said, I've been there, and it's gorgeous. Like it's like spared no expense on the light fixtures and the furniture and the look and the bar and the windows and all of these things. And I was like, why did you do that? Like why did you invest so much in what your restaurant looked like? It's like, well, because like people want to be in a nice place, like a place that makes them feel good, and it creates this vibe and all of these things. And I said, why wouldn't a community do the same thing? And I love that you're pointing out it's more than just public art too, that it can be these splash pads and areas for markets and all these different layers of things that you might say on the outside, if you're just looking at it through the lens of a spreadsheet, like how does a splash pad and spending X amount of money on a splash pad for kids to play in water, how does that make the community more money? How does it make us grow economically? And I tell people when we talk about attraction and retention that if we want our kids to grow up in our communities and stand a chance at them actually wanting to stay there, we have to, when they're kids, speak the language of children. In that, if we go to a 5-year-old and say, you know what, Evelyn, we're going to have so many economic opportunities for you, and here's this job that you can maybe think about having in 20 years, and here's this new industry, she's going to look at me in a complete blank stare. But if I say, do you want to go to the splash park on Saturday? She's going to run to her room. She's going to put on her bathing suit. She's like, let's go right now. And that's a positive emotional connection that these kids have to this place, that when they grow up and they have to start making decisions about where to live the rest of their lives, they can look back and say, my community cared about me. I had fun. There is so much to do. XYZ, and now there's opportunities for me to start my business or for me to contribute to this community, or this is the kind of community I want my kids to grow up in. And that's attraction and retention 101. And so I love this, that you brought up this idea that RRC, MEDC on the outside look like zoning and redevelopment and all of these things, but they open up this door to creating these really what are transformative emotional connections to a place that when people walk out, they can say, oh, this community cares about itself. Look at this. And they're putting in new bathrooms, and there's a trail, and here are things for me to do, and here's new stuff here this year than wasn't here previously. And that means everything. It means absolutely everything. And I think RRC, Michigan Main Street, the MEDC, they're all tools in this toolbox to build thriving, beautiful communities.
And Phil, you ask yourself why, I think both of us, I think, are seeing all this philosophically, like we're on the same page. But you got to ask, right? Why? What's the name of the game? Why are we all doing this, right? I mean, somebody might say, a critic might say, "Oh, you're just trying to chase the dollar, and it's just about making money." And well, it's certainly part of it. But what is the end game, right? What is this all about? It's all about people. It's all about place. It's all about quality of life. We live in a country where you have to work to make a living, to be in a house, to be able to enjoy the tangible things that you might want to acquire as a consumer. But even if you take all that and move it off to the side, we're still talking about quality of life. And we're still talking about whether you have a balance sheet that shows all sorts of goofy numbers on it, and an asset sheet that shows that you've got 17 homes and 10 boats and whatever. It doesn't matter. At the base level of our humanity, we all want a place that we feel is our home, that we call home, that we feel comfortable in, that we can go outside and enjoy the environment. And when I say that, enjoy the environment, to somebody that might mean a walk in a park or a walk in a wooded area. To others, that might mean a walk down a main street or hanging out in a public plaza, sitting on a bench, listening to a podcast or reading a book or watching the splash pad go off or the fireplace or whatever the case is, or going to a farmer's market. It all means something different. But at the end of the day, we're all trying to, when I say all, the city and its partners, we're trying to increase that value proposition. We want people to have a high quality of life here. That means something different for everybody, and we get that. But we believe that it starts with the base foundation of community. And we believe that if we create a community with community assets, with public assets, that can raise that bar, that the monies and all of the other details and the things that will help us be able to sustain those amenities in those places and improve upon them. All of those other things that you need to have as well to support it will be attracted again to either reinvest if they're already here, invest here if they're not already here, and if nothing else, at least talk about how, hey, Cadillac's a cool place to be. Got to check it out. And I would be remiss if at some point I didn't mention the Visitors Bureau. We have such an incredible Visitors Bureau here, and you got to check out CadillacMichigan.com. That's their website and landing page. There is so much information on that site, and it's done in such a cool, organized way. You want to see what kind of events are happening in town, out of town, in the area. Real cool point and click. It takes you there. You want to try to build a trip to come visit. You want to golf. You want to shop. Whatever the case is, you need to know where to stay. All of those resources are just right there. It's a real easy sort of portal to go to. You're looking at coming to Cadillac and you want a permit to put a fence up or something, come to my website, right? But if you want to come here and figure things out, that's the place to start. At least that's what I tell people. So
this emphasis on people, and I love when you said quality of life. You placed a lot of emphasis on the word quality of life. Like, who doesn't want to have a high quality of life or be having a higher quality of life? And I love that you pointed out that to have a high quality of life requires some hard things, like your infrastructure should be good. You should have roads. People should have dependable electricity. They should be able to drink the water. Public services should be
flush the
there.
toilet.
Yes. I mean, the given basic functions of life. There should be a healthy economic infrastructure. What are we doing to develop economically? Housing, business development, things like that. Administrative infrastructure, which is, I think, in a lot of sections where RRC, Michigan Main Street come in, say how can we look at your zoning to streamline it, to modernize it, to make it more attractive to developers. Michigan Main Street coming in saying, hey, here's this 4-point system that is not going to erase your identity, but it's going to allow you to become the best version of yourself as a community. And here's the board structure, and here's how it can work, and here's how we can take all of your amazing ideas and actually make them into a reality. And then this focus on people really highlights something that I love to talk about a lot, is emotional infrastructure. When people look at your community, how does it make them feel? Does it make them, if it makes them feel angry and frustrated and envious of other communities, is that person going to start a business there? Are they going to be that community champion? Are they going to volunteer? Are they going to run for local government? Are they going to speak proudly of where they live? No, they're not, because that's emotionally, that's not what they're connected to. But if they can look out and they can see kids having fun, they can see 50 of their friends at the farmer's market on a Saturday, they can link together with their friends and watch their kids play together at the splash park or eat lunch at a picnic table by themselves next to the lake. Like, all of those things are these little 1%, 5% increases that create what is a healthy emotional infrastructure. And I think that's really, in a lot of cases, where it starts, where success for a community begins. Because if people don't care about their community, what's going to happen after that? And like listening to you talk, I'm so encouraged for your community of Cadillac, because it sounds like you've got the pieces of the puzzle, and they're fitting together, and things are happening, and like housing, addressing that challenge of housing, and there's movement and momentum there. And we talked about how RRC helps kind of open these doors and lead to really transformative events. If a community is watching this or listening to this, and they've heard of being a redevelopment ready community, but they might be a little bit intimidated by the work that goes into it or the process of it, what would you say to them to encourage them to take part in this, in these, take advantage of these tools that are available to them through the RSC toolkit?
I would tell them to be careful about overthinking things. I would throw out a word that I sometimes myself have to, or a phrase that I sometimes myself remind myself not to fall into, which is paralysis by analysis. I'm not saying don't be diligent, I'm not saying don't run things up the chain and whatnot, but sometimes you just have to jump in. I can tell you that when we started with the process of trying to become redevelopment ready certified, if somebody were to say, hey, how long do you think it's going to take? I think I probably would have said, well, we're a small town, probably take, I don't know, year and a half or so. However, what I didn't necessarily think about was how, while at the same time that a couple of staff people were working on it, that those same staff people are also responsible for enforcing some of our codes and for reviewing site plans and for working with me as we sit around and have coffee and talk with prospective developers and work on projects. And it's like, oh my God. So a year and a half turned into almost 5. And so I would say you got to jump in, even if you don't know exactly how in the heck you're going to get across that finish line. Have confidence that you will if you're persistent. Have confidence that the state of Michigan wants you to be successful and that they want you to be able to get through these programs because your success is also their success. I will say that Cadillac right now, and I wish they were where they're at now versus where they were at before as they were just sort of growing, but we are really fortunate. There's basically a newish for us EDO or Economic Development Organization called the Alliance for Economic Success that we have an agreement with. It's a shop of one with a board of local stakeholders. The county also has an agreement with them, as well as other local units of government within the county. And they are now another resource, another ingredient to this whole recipe to help. And so when we go through Main Street and the Main Street program, and as we continue to work through the RRC program, now we have another partner that can help us. And perhaps also just a little disjointed from this current thought pattern here that or topic we're talking about. But as the Economic Development Organization, in a sense, for the area, right now their number one priority isn't trying to land the next big industry or whatever. Not that that would be fantastic, but their number one priority is trying to help with the housing crisis. And people say, well, Cadillac, you've got a lot of houses on the lake, or you've got a lot of this or a lot of that. And the reality is we need more of everything. We need more entry level homes. We need multifamily homes. We need products of all types. And now there's another organization, the Alliance for Economic Success, that is here to help us. They're also affiliated with Michigan State University Extension. Their director is an employee of them. But it's just another cool sort of spider web of connecting the dots of how nothing happens unless there's partnerships and collaborations and relationships. And as long as all the groups, all the parties have their hearts in the right place, which is to progress community, which is to figure out how best to increase quality of life and make this the most desirable place that people want to come to or stay or invest in, we're going to improve, and the economy is going to stay locally robust and strong and get even better. So it's really a cool place to be in Michigan, and I would absolutely encourage people, if you haven't come down here, check out that website, CadillacMichigan.com. Find an activity or an event that's happening. There's some really cool things this summer with an art festival and a Model T group coming with a couple hundred Model Ts, and the Back to the Bricks Flint has us on their tour. So there's going to be a huge car show. So there's just all sorts of neat stuff happening. Pick one of those events, come on down and check it out.
Yeah, I love to hear it. Well, Marcus Peccia of Cadillac, Michigan, I want to thank you so much for such an enjoyable conversation, cheering you and the rest of the community of Cadillac on from a distance. So much for the chat today, man. It's been awesome.
Likewise, anytime. Seriously, Phil, and seriously, come up, give me a call.
Yes,
Show you around.
Yeah, so I can cross Cadillac off my bucket list, and I don't have to be embarrassed about never being there.
That's right. That's
Awesome.
right.
Well, thank you so much.
All right, man. Take care. Appreciate it. Good luck.